All right, good afternoon. Apologies for the delay. We'll try to get done here as quickly as you will allow me to. After we're done, there will be a press briefing on the upcoming UN Ocean Conference, which is taking place in Nice, in France. And you will hear from Lee Junhua, the Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, who is also the Secretary General of the conference. And he will be joined by Ambassador Jérôme Bonafont, permanent representative of France to these United Nations, and Ambassador Maritza Chan Valverde, permanent representative of Costa Rica to these United Nations. Our Deputy Secretary General will be traveling to Dushanbe in the Republic of Tajikistan later today to take part in the International Conference for Glaciers Preservation, and she will be doing that on behalf of the Secretary General. At the conference, Ms. Mohammed will emphasize the need to accelerate climate action to achieve the 1.5 degree target in order to reduce the impact of melting glaciers on people and planet. During the trip, the Deputy Secretary General will also meet with senior government officials to strengthen the UN-Tajikistan partnership, youth and women's groups, and other constituencies to discuss priority action for SDG acceleration. On the 31st of May, she will travel to Marrakesh in Morocco to attend the 2025 Ibrahim Governance Weekend, where she will deliver a keynote address to the opening ceremony and meet with senior government officials and other stakeholders. The Deputy Secretary General from there will go to Geneva to deliver opening remarks at the Global Platform on Disaster Risk Reduction 2025. The platform is a critical mechanism held every 2 years to identify ways to further accelerate the implementation of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. She will also meet with senior government officials of Switzerland and heads of delegation at the global platform. She'll be back in New York on June 4th of this year. Turning to the situation in Gaza, and I can tell you that we have been watching the video coming out of Gaza around one of the distribution points set up by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and frankly, these images are heartbreaking to say the least. As the Secretary General noted last week, we and our partners have a detailed, principled, operationally sound plan supported by member states to get aid to desperate population. We continue to stress that a meaningful scale-up of humanitarian operations is essential to stave off famine and meet the needs of all civilians wherever they are. Our OCHA colleagues report that continued bombardments and shelling across the Gaza Strip has had a horrific impact on civilians. Today, the Ministry of Health reported dozens of people killed and over 150 injured just in the past 24 hours. On Sunday night, a school sheltering displaced people in Ad-Daraj in eastern Gaza was hit, with the attack igniting a fire and reportedly killing 36 people, including women and children. Many of the bodies were reportedly severely burnt. Amid hostilities that are continuing, thousands of people continue to be displaced. Yesterday, another Israeli displacement order was issued covering about 155 square kilometers, of Rafah, Khan Yunis, and central Gaza, and affecting more than 60 neighborhoods in the Gaza Strip. This represents over 40% of the Gaza Strip, which overlaps with previous displacement orders. In North Gaza, our partners tell us that sites for internally displaced people in Beit Hanun, Izbat Beit Hanun, and Beit Lahia are nearly empty in the wake of new displacement orders, in the wake of the displacement orders issued for those areas. In Khan Yunis, displaced people continue to live in the open, where they're exposed to the heat and elements. Many are physically exhausted and frail, having walked long distances on damaged goods with no food to sustain them. Since the renewed escalation of hostilities in March, our partners estimate that more than 632,000 people have been forced to flee yet again. They are left to survive with a very small part of Gaza, with barely anything to survive on. We continue to underscore that civilians must be protected, including those fleeing and forced to leave through displacement orders, and also those who decide to remain despite these orders. Civilians who flee must be allowed to return home as soon as circumstances allow. Civilians must be able to receive humanitarian assistance they need wherever they may be. All of this is obviously required under international humanitarian law. Meanwhile, our partners working in health report that there are even fewer health facilities operating this week. Since last Monday, more than 24 health centers and mobile clinics and one hospital have suspended services because of hostilities, attacks, or displacement orders in those areas. On the water and sanitation front, some 200,000 liters of fuel are needed per week across Gaza to sustain those critical facilities. However, the situation in the south of Gaza is particularly concerning as no fuel is currently available there, and only 1/3 of the required supply was received last week. Meanwhile, northern Gaza has managed to secure sufficient fuel to sustain water, sanitation operations for 2 weeks. Our colleagues at the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, and as we all do, continue to call for the opening of all crossing points for humanitarian aid and commercial goods. We and our humanitarian partners stand ready to deliver at scale, which is something we've been repeated over and over and over again. International law must be respected and humanitarian operations must be enabled without any further delay. Moving to southern Lebanon, our peacekeepers there continue to work in coordination with the Lebanese armed forces to detect and dismantle any unauthorized weapon, ammunition, and infrastructure. On Monday, peacekeepers observed a loaded rocket launcher southwest of Yaroun village in southern Lebanon, which was subsequently reported to and removed by the Lebanese armed forces. Yesterday, peacekeepers from UNIFIL Sector West met with religious leaders of the Muslim and Christian faith in Yaroun. The village was devastated by the conflict. The leaders acknowledged the essential role the UN had in maintaining and restoring stability in the village. Since Friday, UN peacekeepers observed ongoing IDF operations in Lebanon, all in violation of Security Council Resolution 1701, including patrols and activities involving vehicles and tanks, several outside of areas already occupied by the Israeli Defense Forces. On Saturday, IDF planted an Israeli flag in Lebanese territory outside one of their occupied positions. The flag was later removed by UN peacekeepers, who were followed by an IDF drone and subject to electronic interference, in which radio and communications were temporarily jammed, putting them at even greater risk. Turning to Sudan and the worsening humanitarian situation there, our humanitarian colleagues are warning that the crisis is deepening as sustained fighting, ongoing displacement, and rising health emergencies continue to fuel humanitarian needs. In North Darfur State, artillery shelling continues to impact residential areas of El Fasher in the Abu Shuk camp for internally displaced people. Local sources report daily civilian casualties, and recent days has seen an intensification of bombardments at night. In South Kordofan State, the International Organization for Migration reported last week that about 2,800 people, primarily women and children, fled renewed fighting in the town of Dibadad. They are now scattered across the locality of Al-Khuz in South Kordofan, as well as other localities in neighboring West Kordofan with limited access to a basic protection and services. The situation in the state capital, Kadugli, has also been very seriously deteriorating in recent weeks, with intense shelling and humanitarian access largely cut off. In northern state, authorities report that about 6,000 people who fled from North Darfur, Khartoum, and West Kordofan due to insecurity arrived in Daba in northern state between the 12th and 22nd of May. Meanwhile, a cholera outbreak in Khartoum state is worsening at an alarming rate, we are told. Our humanitarian partners in the state report an 80% increase in suspected cases over the past 2 weeks, bringing the total number of cases to more than 8,500. The World Health Organization has supported the delivery of medical supplies to some hospitals in Khartoum, but much more is needed to contain the outbreak. In addition, a recent interagency assessment by our partners and ourselves found high rates of acute respiratory infections, of malaria, and of skin conditions among these returnees. The lack of mosquito nets, the lack of proper shelter, the lack of water, the lack of sanitation, and the lack of hygiene facilities is significantly increasing the risk of disease outbreak. With the approach of the rainy season, which typically runs from June to September, we and our partners are racing to pre-position aid. We've established storage facilities with a combined capacity of 30,000 metric tons in Jenaina, in Nyala, and Tawila in Darfur to support the operations in Kordofan and Darfur regions. West and Central Darfur will be served via cross-border operations in Chad. Amidst this, all our humanitarian partners on the ground report that access to education remains severely constrained in North Darfur. Since the conflict began in April 2023, some 250,000 children have lost access to learning. That's 250,000 kids. As of last month, our partners in the state had only reached 14% of children targeted for education support due to insecurity, access challenges, and critical funding shortfalls. Across Sudan, millions of children have been cut off from formal education. We once again call for an increased flexible and timely funding to scale up humanitarian response, as well as unimpeded access via all necessary routes so that aid workers can reach people in need wherever they may be. Turning to Myanmar, another horrific situation, flag a report by a Human Rights Office which found that the vast majority of people in Myanmar are united in their defiance of military authoritarianism and violence and call for international resolve to end the military stranglehold on power and to support the democratic aspirations of the Myanmar people. The report will be presented to Human Rights Council on July 1st and underscores the importance of tackling the root causes of the crisis, including unchecked political and economic power concentrated in the military's hands, generalized impunity and instrumentalization of laws and institutions to serve military interest, an overall system of governments based on structural racial discrimination, exclusion, and division. The report identifies 4 key areas on the path forward: accountability, good governance, sustainable development, and the actions of international and regional stakeholders. More is available on online. I want to give you a quick update regarding Cyprus. As you know, the personal envoy of the Secretary General, Maria Angela Holgun, is in Cyprus, where she will stay until May 31st. On Saturday, she had a meeting with the Greek Cypriot leader, Nikos Christoulidis, and yesterday, Ms. Holgun met with the Turkish Cypriot leader, Ersin Tatar. Ms. Holgun said in both meetings she heard concerns of the leaders and also reviewed the group of initiatives to build trust and agreed by the parties during the last meeting in Geneva, which took place in March. The personal envoy said that the aim is to work with the parties to achieve results on the agreements by the end of July, when the next meeting with the Secretary General is supposed to take place. While in Cyprus, Ms. Holgun also meet with other actors on the Cyprus issue. She plans to subsequently engage with the guarantor powers of Greece, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. And I've also an update on Ukraine for you. I can tell you that the Secretary General condemns the large-scale aerial attacks by the Russian Federation that caused numerous civilian casualties across Ukraine over the weekend. The Secretary General is also concerned about the impact of reported Ukrainian drone strikes on the civilian population in the Russian Federation. Attacks against civilian infrastructure are prohibited under international law. We once again condemn all such attacks wherever they occur. We reiterate the Secretary General's call for a full, immediate, and unconditional ceasefire in Ukraine as a first step towards a just, comprehensive, and sustainable peace in line with the UN Charter, international law, and United Nations resolutions. And just to give you a bit more granularity, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that the recent waves of airstrikes across Ukraine killed and injured civilians and damaged civilian infrastructure. In the last 5 days, authorities reported more than 160 civilian casualties across Ukraine in the cities of Kyiv, and the towns of Donetsk, Kherson, Kyiv, and Zhytomyr regions have been most affected. Matthias Schmale, our humanitarian coordinator, said no place is safe across the country, and yet again civilians, including children, are killed among these attacks. That's it for me. I'll take some questions before we go to our guests, Edie, then Deji. And then...
Thank you, Steph. As a follow-up on Gaza, You said the images from the site operated by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation are heartbreaking. Could you give us a little more detail on that? And could you also tell us whether the UN is still trying to deliver aid anywhere in Gaza?
Anyone who watches the images of people desperate to get aid in the way that it's been set up and not be moved, to me is questionable. They are hard to watch, these pictures. I can tell you that obviously we've just seen the videos. We don't have any independent confirmation of what happened at these distribution points, as we're not there and we're not involved in them. Deji. Oh, sorry. Yes, your second question. We are continuing to try to pick up from the crossing at Karim Shalom. Today, we had teams trying to pick up more supply from the Palestinian side of the Karim Shalom crossing. The Israeli authorities had cleared about 100 trucks for us. We had prepared for more. At this point, I don't have any clarity as to what is going on exactly at that loading area. On Saturday, the crossing was closed. Yesterday, another batch of about 100 trucks were sent in. But obviously, as a reminder for us to reach that loading dock with empty trucks, to reach that loading dock with staff is an arduous process, which demands obviously coordination with the Israeli forces, which demands our own assessment that those routes are safe.
And are any of those, the goods from those trucks actually getting to warehouses and getting to Palestinians?
Not as far as I've been briefed today. Deji, and then Linda. And then we'll go back.
I'm just wondering, a follow-up also in Gaza. I'm just wondering, what is the difference between the U.S.-run humanitarian aid operation and the Gazan humanitarian fund? I mean, logistically speaking, because you said again and again about how difficult it is to have trucks in the border area to pick up those things to the warehouse and extra, but for the other side, for the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, it feels easy. Why is this difference?
Well, I will let you do a compare and contrast, Deji. You're the journalist. I can only speak to what we've been trying to do. I can only speak to the very clear principles that the Secretary General talked about on Friday. I can only speak to the very clear vision that Tom Fletcher outlined more than 10 days ago in his plan to ensure the safe distribution of aid, to ensure the unimpeded distribution of aid to people who need it, where they're needed. The system that we had, right, was not perfect. Nothing in Gaza is perfect. We're not claiming that. But it's a system that worked, and we saw how it worked during the ceasefire.
Wouldn't you feel it would be better if you incorporate with Gaza Humanitarian Fund so that this chaotic thing couldn't happen?
It's not a matter of us crossing our arms saying we're not going to cooperate.
Well, you're experienced.
What we are saying is that for us, humanitarian aid needs to be distributed in a way that is safe under principles of independence, impartiality, in the way we've always done it. We saw the plan that they've published and that they presented to us, and it is not done with the parameters that we feel match our principles, which we apply across the board, from Gaza to Sudan to Myanmar to anywhere you want to talk about. I'm going to move on. Yes, please, go in the back.
Hi,
Oh, sorry, and then Linda. Sorry, go ahead, and then Linda. I'll get you.
No problem. So sources say Hamas recently agreed to yet another ceasefire deal, but Israeli officials and the U.S. envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, rejected the deal as unacceptable. So my question to you is, to the best of your knowledge, is the UN participating in any of these negotiations?
No, we
or
are not.
discussions?
We are not.
Okay. Thank you.
Linda Fasulo, NPR.
Thank you, Steph. Back to the Gaza question. We know that the Trump administration has accused Hamas of taking some of the food that's been given throughout time. And of course, you've mentioned that no
If you could put your microphone a little closer.
and you've said that no system is perfect, whether it's Gaza, Sudan, South Sudan, or Myanmar. The question is that since there's, with women and children, you clearly know with women and children, but in terms of the men who are getting aid, since Hamas, I gather, they don't wear uniforms. It's hard to differentiate who's in the military, who isn't. I mean, what does the UN say about that in terms of perhaps Hamas fighters getting some of the aid?
No. We distribute aid based on a system that has worked for a long time, that has fed people who are hungry, that has given water to people who are thirsty, that it's given medicine to people who are sick. No system is foolproof. None, right? But I think to say that, to stop all aid in Gaza based on random accusations is just placing more suffering on the people of Gaza. Sorry, yes, Volodymyr, do you have a question?
I got a very short question. Do you agree with President Trump's assessment of Russian ruler Putin that he's gone crazy, killing large numbers of people, and that he's playing with fire?
I'm not going to be dragged into commenting on that, but thank you for asking the question and trying. Yes, Madame.
Stéphane, just a clarification. The fact now that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is delivering aid, does that mean the UN cannot at all?
No. I mean, we're still trying. We're still trying, desperately trying to deliver aid based on our system that has worked. And we've outlined it, and it's very challenging, and it's, as the Secretary General said, it's teaspoon by teaspoon. But it's not one or the other. We're continuing to try. We're just not involved in terms of what they're doing. Sinan, please, and then we'll go to the screen.
Thank you, Steph. I have a question on Syria. According to media reports, the French Alawite Collective has accused Syria's...
Sorry, put a little louder.
Sure. The French Alawite Collective has accused Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Shara to the ICC of having orchestrated massacres in March and May that caused more than 1,700 people. So does Secretary General have any reaction to this?
I have not seen that report. I would get a confirmation. I would ask you to get a confirmation from the ICC. Not for us to comment. Obviously, we do believe in accountability and the protection of the rights of all Syrians, especially those who need more protection, ethnic and national minorities. Let's go to the screen, Michelle, and then Mike.
Thanks, Steph. I just want to clarify what you were saying about Kerem Shalom and UN trying to get aid. You said yesterday 100 trucks were cleared?
Michelle, hold on. We got to lower the volume.
Oh, sorry.
I know you're loud, but not that loud. Go ahead.
They've lowered you. I can barely hear you. That's not a problem.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I go?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Really?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Oh my God, what is this? We're good? Okay. I wanted to clarify the numbers you were giving us about Kerem Shalom. You said about 100 trucks came in yesterday. Do you mean crossed the border at Kerem Shalom and are still in the loading area, or do you mean left Kerem Shalom and went into Gaza?
The information I've been given is that they've crossed from Israel into Kerem Shalom, but still at the loading dock.
Okay, and did any trucks cross the border today?
Not that I'm today. Some were cleared today, but we don't have the update as of yet.
Okay, so basically, Israel is still allowing the UN to deliver aid into Gaza.
Under extremely difficult circumstances with quite a lot of obstacles, if not many.
Thank you.
All right, Mike.
If the echo doesn't open. Number one, on the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and the UN efforts are running on a parallel track here. Is there any interference that you know of that the UN is running into because of the GHF's efforts? Is the UN having to yield any routes or any pickup times or anything like that? Is there any conflict between the two?
Not that I'm aware of, but that's a level of granularity you may want to check with our colleagues in Jerusalem, but I'm not aware of that.
Okay, I'll check with them. Second topic, your Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs has been a bastion of misinformation as of late, and I wanted to get comment from the SG or his representative, you. Mr. Fletcher is refusing through his office to correct his 14,000 dead babies in 48 hours comment. Actually went on CNN a couple days ago, was given a softball opportunity to correct it. Didn't do it then, and also added a piece of misinformation about 10,000 trucks waiting at the border to deliver aid. Where's the credibility and where is the accountability for giving such substantial and consequential pieces of misinformation and not making any effort to correct himself?
I think I would encourage you all to watch his answer to Christiane Amanpour on CNN, which I think clarified the intent of what he was saying, and what remains the headline and what remains a true fact is that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. On the issue of the trucks, my understanding is that there's enough material to fill about 10,000 trucks. And I can tell you that the Secretary General has full confidence in Mr. Fletcher and the work that he's doing. Any more questions? Yes, Abdel Hamid, and then we need to go to our guest.
Yes. Thank you. 3 days ago, Stéphane, Dr. Ala al-Najjar lost her 9 children in one shot. They were burned to death. And I think that's also, as you mentioned in your briefing, should be a heartbreaking development. However, I haven't seen any statement from any official, correct me, especially from Virginia Gamba and Catherine Russell, who deal with children. When some of those people rushed to issue a statement on the 2 diplomats killed in Washington, which is not in their mandate, but children in the heart of their mandate, yet such a crime passes without any statement, any condemnation from any UN official. I could be wrong, so please correct me.
These things do not pass without any mention. We mentioned it today. There is tragically a cavalcade of horrors going on in Gaza, and we condemn all killings of civilians. You have another question?
Specifically talking about the crime of killing 9 children for Dr. Ala al-Najjar. This is it's not just like bombing and killing civilians. It's a specific incident. That's what I'm asking about.
Question. I've answered it to the best of my limited ability. On that note, I will leave you with our guests. Thank you very much.